Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today's Sunday, October 12th. We're going to start off with the Kushners, Jared and Ivanka. Is there, anybody who is more a candidate to be the Antichrist than Jared Kushner? Right? You know, um, I've heard people think that it's one person or another, right? Various people. But Jared Kushner, well, this is Park Avenue 666. Let's get into his thing here. Um, Jared Kushner bought Fifth Avenue 666 in New York City. Here's the building, right? Um, who owns Fifth Avenue 666? It's Jared Kushner, this creepy motherfucker. So he bought a building that has the numbers that, are biblical. I don't know if he still has that building, but he bought it some time ago. I don't know if he still possesses it. Um, but you know, it's a thing. Remember, Trump said that it is right here. It's a 40-story tower, Midtown Manhattan. That's supposed to be the crown jewel of the Kushner Company's real estate empire. Um, Timeline and Jared Kushner, Qatar, 666 Fifth Avenue, uh, in Midtown Manhattan. Remember, Trump said he could shoot somebody in the face on Fifth Avenue, and nobody would care. None of his supporters would care because he had that kind of power over them. So to understand, first of all, the number 666 here from the Berean Bible here. Here is a call for wisdom. This is Revelation 13 dot 18 colon 18. Here is a call for wisdom. Let the one who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of man, and that number is 666. So it means the mark of the beast. And I talk about the beast being the system that we have now. And, I don't believe in the numbers, and I'm not a big biblical fan, although I was very intrigued by the Revelation, book of Revelation. It's completely different than any other part of the Bible. It's about prophecy and the end time stuff. Which you could, the end time stuff could be in every book, because there's times civilizations collapse. There's times countries collapse. There's times religions collapse. It's a part of it. It's like that everything has a death. And so you can predict these things, and you can do it in a very vague way, and they can say, hey, this is prophecy, and, you could be right. The prophecy could be right, doesn't mean that it's prophetic. But, it's there. And for Christians, it's there. And for our country, 666 means something. Like most people understand that there's 666. There's the Monster Energy drink. So there is this idea that this is the symbol for six in Hebrew. So the Monster Energy drink has these three things. It looks like an M on it, but it's three separate sixes. And, it's there in, even AI gets into it here. They don't say, the Monster product most closely associated with 666 speculation is a Monster Energy drink. The logo here, and it says this stuff to do with, and this is also the Unleash the Beast slogan, right? So there's things like that, right? The 666, and then there was 666 Park Avenue, and it's kind of like Fifth Avenue, and it is, I assume a gateway to hell because of the, never saw the show. But, they made a big deal about it being 666, right? The mark of the beast. And so, aside from that, Jared Kushner and Ivanka got $2 billion investment from the Saudi Arabian government when Trump was president. And they bailed on Trump when he was going through all the bullshit he was going through the 4 years after he lost the election. All the legal stuff. And they decided not to be a part of this administration because they thought it would be best for them. They didn't know that Trump was going to ride such a wave of power and, whatever was going on with him. But Jared Kushner is a real piece of shit. And so I'm saying this because him and Ivanka gave a speech yesterday. And I want to get to that because it's creepy as fuck, because that guy's really creepy. There's a time where like no one had heard him talk, and people started talking about him and saying like he would be at a party and he'd go to somebody going, okay, I'm done talking to you. I need to find somebody more important than you. Like he would just say shit like that, right? So, he is definitely the most creepy person in a very creepy fucking family, right? Like it's a creepy fucking family, and he's the creepiest. Aside from that, his dad was a felon. His dad was a convicted felon, and so what happened with his dad was he got, I'll see it from here, 16, Charles Kushner. Now Trump pardoned him. 16 counts of tax evasion, witness tampering, and making false statements to the Federal Election Commission. So he was bribing politicians, is what it is, to build, some kind of bullshit buildings like slumlords, whatever, things like that. Just scummy stuff, right? But the most fucked up part of his case, because I remember there was something, so I asked, what was the story behind it? The most sensational part of Charles Kushner's conviction was the witness tampering charge, which involved a scheme of revenge against his brother-in-law and his own sister. The motive, Charles Kushner was under federal investigation for illegal campaign contributions and tax evasion. His sister, Esther Schulder, and her husband, William Schulder, a former business partner of Kushner, were cooperating with the federal authorities, potentially providing evidence against Kushner. The scheme, so this is kind of family too, right? Like they're in some kind of scummy business together, and his sister and her husband decides to rat out their brother-in-law, your brother-in-law. And so this is what he does. In an attempt to retaliate against his sister and intimidate his brother-in-law from cooperating further, Kushner hired a prostitute to lure William Schulder into an extramarital encounter. The act, Kushner arranged for the encounter to take place in a New Jersey motel and had it secretly videotaped with a hidden camera. He admitted to personally recruiting the prostitute. The retaliation, Kushner then had the videotape anonymously mailed to his own sister, Esther Schulder's wife. Esther Schulder's wife. He ultimately pleaded guilty one count of retaliating against cooperating witness, in addition to multiple counts of tax evasion, making the false statements to the Federal Election Commission. The prosecuting attorney, Chris Christie, famously called the witnessing tampering offense one of the most loathsome, disgusting crimes he had ever prosecuted. So Christie was involved in this, right? And so this was a big New York thing. And Jared Kushner was kind of humiliated, but loved his dad, looked up to him because, that's his role model. And this is Esther Schulder. There she is with her husband. And they, this whole thing happened, right? The Schulders. And there it is. There's the Jared Kushner with his dad, who is standing behind him while he gives this speech, I believe. It's the same fucking guy. And so that's all you have to know about this motherfucker. Let's get into the speech.
I agree with you. Thank you, Witkoff.
Okay, so they're in Tel Aviv, which is the capital of Israel. I'm going to get to Erika Kirk's. I think the Erika Kirk's 666 post. So this is about 666 today, right? Because, let's say it doesn't mean shit. Let's say that's just some weird shit that happened in the Bible. The book of Revelation is like nothing else. They credit it to John, but it was an edition that was 80 years after the other biblical. There was the stuff from St. Paul. He came later. There's the disciples who all wrote things about Jesus or intercommuned with him or whatever that was, right? Like they saw Jesus after he died. So there's these books of Mark, these books that are a part of the New Testament. And the book of Revelation, they say John, but it's probably not John, the disciple John. And it's just like out there. There's nothing else like it in the Bible. And when I was a kid, I was like, wow, this is really interesting because I'm, like I find this stuff interesting. Um, but the 666, as I was saying here, so there's, this idea that 666 is a part of that. And let's say the numbers mean, I'm not a big numerology person. I mean, I think there's, the one thing about math is it's factual, right? There's a meme I used to use where Will Smith says 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4. It's going to equal whatever I want it to, right? It's some weird meme he said.
You're in a universe and 2 plus 2 equals 4. 2 plus 2 only equals 4 if you accept that 2 plus 2 equals 4. 2 plus 2 is going to be what I want it to be. You know?
Yeah, but, you could call it a different name, but it still equals 4. That's the good thing about math. Like everything else is bullshit. Like everything else is manipulable. It's a subjective story. Like there's very few facts, right? Like you can get into the spiritual reason for something happening. You get into past lives or divine mandate or any number of things, right? There's very few things that are factual. Like everything has a deeper story. Like I talk about how, when we look at the computer, we think we're seeing something, but we're just seeing a reproduction of that. Like you're listening to a reproduction of my voice, right? That there is I'm talking to a microphone, and where this is happening, and my two dogs are both sleeping on the bed, and there's no one else hearing me, but it's going into the microphone and being copied into a digital format, and there's a code behind it, computer code, and that's what it really is, right? It's being, it's a duplicate of something. It's not my actual voice. It's something else. So, it's illusionary, but it feels like that. And all these pictures you're seeing and all the stuff you're seeing on the computer is digitalized. And so that's, everything in our material world is Maya, which is a Sanskrit word for illusion. I've talked about that quite a bit. But like when you look at the sky being blue or leaves on a tree being green, you think that's their actual color, but they're just rejecting the light, the prismatic breaking up of the light, the various, the spectrum of different colors in a beam of light that you see from a prism. And they have this, RBGG, whatever it is, that whole, the 6 original colors. Is it 6 or is it 8? What's one of those things? Red, green, blue, orange, yellow, purple, violet, whatever, ultraviolet, infrared, and ultraviolet. And the leaf rejects green. It absorbs all the other light, but is rejecting the green, and so it looks green. So everything's illusionary, right? But in that you have math. Like math is the one thing where, you count things, and there's no, that's where they get you, is with the math. Like if they really want to get you, they can get you with the math. And so there is this numerology things that math means something, the numbers mean something different. But that's not math. That's just this idea that some numbers have, like this is the mark of the beast. And that maybe or may not be true. But at least it is true in the sense that people believe it. And there's a power in collective belief. There's a power in individual belief, whether it's true or not. And so, 666.
I've had the great honor for the last 10 months of working with Steve very closely, even more so in the last month. And I have to tell you, it's been an honor to me to work with such a special man who's approached this impossible.
I thought this was his dad, but it's Steve Witkoff. Look at this frowny motherfucker right here. This fake face, plastic face fucking Barbie doll that Trump was obsessed with his daughter. That's like, there's a guy out there, he's a comedian who, he's trying to be a comedian now. I think he has a little podcast, but he went on a sort of interview tour 5-6 years ago. That he used to be that he used to handle the talent at Trump's live shows, like his live apprentice shows and his beauty contests. And he had just said like Trump was addicted to Adderall, and he had like very sensationalistic claims. He's definitely somebody who was wanting to become famous. He was looking for social media folly. So you have to take that into consideration. But everything he said was believable. But he said that Trump was, obsessed with his daughter Ivanka. And when they first got together, he called Jared Kushner that Jew or the Jew or something like that. Like he was prejudiced against him or just whatever. He was, but he had lots of. This guy talked a lot about weird shit that Trump had done, like crapping his pants and other stuff like that. Again, just his story. But Trump never sued the guy, so this guy signed an NDA, but broke it, and he went on. Interesting kind of things to listen to. He's a little bit funny, the guy, his stories. But Ivanka's a weird, like her. She's really weird, and this guy is just like just really one. He's just like he's some kind of like Lex Luthor supervillain kind of Damien from the Omen, 666 having Antichrist motherfucker, right?
Task with a full heart and with a full commitment.
Now, this guy, there's nothing about him that you would say is a full heart, right?
And when things got tough and we ran into brick walls, every time that happened, we just said, let's make a new plan. Let's try again. And that's
Woo!
And that's what being partners with Steve was like. And I also have to say, working with President Trump on this, his commitment to seeing peace, to seeing the hostages return home, to seeing Israel secure and safe, and to seeing the entire Middle East stable and thriving is unmatched.
Woo! We got pictures of Trump out here that really.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trump. Thank you, Trump. So this is in Tel Aviv, Israel. And they're not saying thank you, Trump, in Palestine, right? There's no thank you, Trump rallies going on there. Absolute piece of shit. And, whatever they do to Gaza in terms of a real estate development project, and like he's their whole family's real estate development. Jared Kushner also. So, like, he has a, real estate development background. And then whatever them working with Trump company, right, which was fucking bankrupt. The stuff about The Apprentice that came out, not just from this guy I talked about, but former employees there, that Trump's offices were a mess. It was just, he had very few employees. It wasn't like it was a real thing. It was just like a smoke and mirrors type of thing. So they had to build him the boardroom and his offices. They had to build like a set that wasn't his real offices because he really didn't have a whole, he was going bankrupt so many times, and it was more of he had the kind of offices a grifter would have, right? Somebody, a con man would have to sell people stuff. And, he was in disarray. He had just come back from bankruptcy when they hired him as the apprentice. And it actually worked out great for him because he was able to get those projects, right? He got a lot of money off of those merchandising deals, or those merch deals. I don't know why I had trouble saying that, merchandising. Like he would have these segments where they had these tasks where they had to promote a company, and they were like a free commercial, and Trump would make money off of those. He didn't make money off anything else, but he would just sit there and read the lines. I mean, he wasn't really a part of anything, and he would make arbitrary firings that weren't a part of the script. There was an obvious person that they were wanting to be fired because Trump wasn't watching any of this stuff because he's not curious. He doesn't give a shit, right? He gets bored. Like he talked about, remember that guy who I have that clip somewhere, but he talked about that guy, that news reporter who got involved in the Signal Gate, right, with Pete Hegseth, including him in the chat. And he said the guy left the chat because he was bored. Like Trump said, this is his big moment. Like that was probably the biggest moment that guy had as a so-called journalist, wherever he worked for. But he was a liberal Trump-hating journalist, and somehow he got included in a classified signal chat, right? Which was completely fucked. And, and this guy was not bored. But it showed you Trump was, he gets bored because he gets bored by all the stuff that they're talking about. Whatever it is, he doesn't care about government. He doesn't care about, it's a lot of government is boring. You have all these policy wonks and, it's just legalese and all that stuff. And Trump's, dyslexic like I am. And, but he's not like I am, but he's dyslexic and we're both dyslexic, but it, manifests differently. But he has trouble reading, doesn't like to read. He said that. They asked him what his favorite book is, and he doesn't read, right? He says his books are his favorite, and the Bible. So there's that.
That's right. Thank you, President Trump.
That's right. He's so weird, fucking weird. He's very effeminate and
The amazing job you did and for your commitment to bring this horrible conflict to an end. October 7th.
There's no conflict here. It's not a war. It's a slaughter. Let's go back because this is the piece here.
October 7th for me was a shattering day. My wife and I were at a friend's wedding in Colorado, and I remember hearing the news, and I just went to the hotel room, and I was looking at videos and trying to speak to whoever I could to get information, and I just stayed there all night, and I cried. Seeing some of these acts that were committed on that day made me think about how fortunate we are to have a society with rules and laws and people with morals. And seeing these horrific, barbaric acts shocked me to my core in a way that I'll never be the same.
See, I have a voiceover I did yesterday. Let's play that here. Okay. So today's Saturday, October 11th. I watched this video of Jared Kushner, which you're already seeing here in this video. I haven't gotten the clip, but I had this reaction to, Jared Kushner saying that he'll never be the same because of his watching October 7th on TV, right? So, Jared Kushner just seems very robotic. Him and Ivanka, weird people. Very ghoulish, vampirish, right? Demonic. Not good-hearted people. Like I used to say this about Bill Gates. Bill Gates became a philanthropist. He was supposedly starting this foundation so he could give back all this money he made. A guy who created a monopoly and has just people. Some people have heart that you can see. They feel things in their heart, and they want to help people. They want to help humanity. Bill Gates didn't make all that money and do all that what he did with Microsoft so he could help humanity, right? Like he's just not in him. He's a cutthroat businessman and a financial hoarder that hoard billions of dollars. And so when he said he was going to be a philanthropist, it was just a way to hide his money. Keep his money from being taxed and make more money on bullshit projects that were supposed to be for the good of humanity, right? It's bullshit. It's just not this guy isn't a person that feels deeply for other people in his heart, just wants to help them, right? Nobody would believe that. Nobody with any ability to perceive and analyze somebody else's intentions would believe that he's being honest, right? My wife and I have had an incredible summer. It's just probably the best summer of my life. And I always enjoy my summers. I was born in July, and I'm kind of a summer person. I always liked my time in Florida, visiting my grandparents and living there. I lived in the Virgin Islands, and, I've always been a beach person, these things. And on the farm, we just had an amazing summer this year. It's still going on. It's like 80 degrees outside, just walking around with our dogs. And, we had the chicks that are, we had 3 batches of chicks this year. We were down to like 7 old chickens. They really weren't laying eggs, and we decided to, spend the time and get a bunch of chicks and raise them. We had 2 that survived from the first brood. We have 10 from the second, with including some guinea fowl that are now adults, and they're really interesting. And then my wife got to experience the broody hen. I've covered this in some of the videos. My son was the last. My youngest child moved out. It was the end of my kids being living at home. Now they're all they all left and were out on their own, and that whole transitionary period, empty nesting, and I felt sad inside, but really relieved. When your kids are young, you're changing diapers, and the kids are, can't clean up after themselves, can't feed themselves in the beginning. They're babies and toddlers, and they take a lot of interaction, and they need to be cleaned up after, and all these things, right? And as they get older, they become more and more independent. They have their own lives, and then eventually they move out. And it's getting them ready for the world is like what you do as a parent. And there's a point where that ends, and that it's significant. And it was a kind of relief for me, and given all the issues that we had over the years with my ex and these things, I've talked about this extensively during the Journey series. But there was just all this. It was just an epic summer in a variety of different ways. And like I said, it's still like summer out. It's been nice for all these first couple of fall, what I consider fall months, September and October, and the rest of it. And we were walking around. We had this really epic field of goldenrod. I plant a lot of flowers, and we have a walk around the pasture that we walk on every day with the dogs. And we had all these frogs and animals this year, and so many cool garden spires and things. I showed all these pictures. And we had all these monarch butterflies about 2 weeks ago, and butterflies in general. We had thousands of them. And we had this goldenrod and these daisies that came up, these beautiful white little daisies and goldenrods, like a sea of goldenrod. And each year it gets better. And, the butterflies have more or less disappeared. I saw one last monarch butterfly. There are a couple other ones. But, the thousands have gone away, and now there's just a few here or there. Some of the birds have started to migrate. And I felt a little, twinge of sadness as I walked around the pasture with my dogs. I hurt my knee, so I'm like limping around. And it's not a big deal, but it's something that I would feel because of doing the Sajmarg meditation, the naturopath meditation that I've been doing for a number of years. And it makes you more sensitive to things, and you feel things in your heart that you normally wouldn't feel. But when I cover things here, I'm pretty oblivious to it. Like I get mentally, mentally, I don't know. I have my mental moral judgments, my mental judgments of good and bad. With the idea that, God has a plan, and some of the things that seem bad are part of that plan. I'm pretty reasonable about that. But I don't get affected by the cesspit that I cover every day. And if I see stories about people dying and things like that, I feel bad about it mentally. Or I think, I have thoughts about it mentally, about right and wrong and genocide and things. But I don't feel the suffering that I would feel if I knew the people, or if I went to Palestine, I saw what was going on there, right? It's impersonal. It's just like you're watching a show, and I don't know how you guys feel about it. Some people get more upset than others, but if I got upset about it, I couldn't do this job because there's so much to get upset about, right? It's all upsetting. But let's say some woman who, or you meet some woman, I'm using the example of a woman here, and she tells you a story about her boyfriend, what a piece of shit he is. He beats her up, and like someone you work with, and everyone comes around and coddles her, and you all feel bad, and you hate the boyfriend, you despise the boyfriend, right? And then you find out she's lying. She didn't even have a boyfriend. She's gotten everybody angry and gotten everybody worked up based on some fictitious story, manipulating their emotions. And that's what the beast system and the news and all this stuff does on a daily basis. Like, we don't even know what's real or what's true, what's not, what's made up, what's manufactured, all these things. It's all a manipulation. So I do my best not to get sucked into it because, I don't even know if it's real or not. Like, it's just watching a show. And you can watch a movie or TV show and get angry at a character, hate a character. You'll have all this negative feelings towards, people or person in the movie, and it's all make believe, and there's no reason to feel that way because it's not even real. But the deceptions are, on a subconscious level, on an emotional level, they feel real, and sometimes they, even on a mental level, they seem real. Another thing is it's partial information. So I worked in a treatment center with these kids who were termed sexually reactive. And we had to, we were in the milieu. We acted as counselors, like parental substitutes for these kids who lived in these cottages, right? These, this was basically a building, not even a cottage, but, it had, I think, 15 bedrooms in it. And, the kids would, they all had their own rooms because they were always at risk of sexually abusing each other and, just twisted things, right? And we had a training with a clinician, a counselor, something that I would later become in a different treatment center. And there was this one woman, she was really good. She did really good trainings. And she came in and she, we used to have to read the intake files of the patients. And she came in and she read a kid's intake file. And it talked about the mom, and the mom sexually abused the kids and so much more. And she goes, how do you feel about the mom? And everyone's like, well, we hate her. And then she read the mom's history and what her parents had done to her. And she was like, well, how do you feel about her now, right? So, there's lots of piece of shit people out there. And not that it's a justification, but, there's a lot of broken people, especially now with the younger generation, who don't really grow up in a family and grow up in the fucking weird-ass internet and, are subjected to, like, violent video games and porn and, they're not given morals and ethics. They don't have any real religion or spirituality, and they're just all fucked up, right? And so, there's a reason for everyone being fucked up beyond, what we see. And when we react to what the final presentation of these people are. But, they come from fucked up families and they from a fucked up society. And there's always, like, generations of stories behind it, right? So that's the other piece to it. So I make comments about stuff, and, it seems like I'm being judgmental, like all people, piece of shit and dumb fucks. But, I understand there's more to the story than I'm seeing and, other people see. It's just we see, just a small portion of it. But in all that, I don't react to stuff emotionally because of that reason, because it's, it's not really real. It's not a part of my personal life. It's not people that I interact with, and these things. But when Jared Kushner got up and said he was watching this thing on, September 7th, and he reacted in such a way that he'll never be the fucking same, and he cried and all this bullshit, right? And I don't believe any of that. I don't think anybody would. This 6'6" Park Avenue owning motherfucker was just, everything about him screams ghoul and fucking, inhuman, like they live type of alien fucking piece of shit, right? But if he was that caring, wouldn't he care about the Palestinian children or just kids dying in his own country? I mean, there's people suffering everywhere. If you want to feel bad, there's plenty of fucking people suffering. Seems like it's, it's not even understandable, especially young kids who are born into horrific families or have war-torn countries. And there's people miserable and starving and suffering all over the world. I mean, the majority of people are suffering. I mean, even the wealthy people, the people who have enough to eat and a nice place to live and nice things, most of those people, even the ultra-wealthy people, are suffering, miserable, lonely. So many people are suicidal and depressed. And we have a whole world of fucking suffering. But no, these specific 1,500 people, because they belong to the same religion in the country, and somehow their suffering is so much worse, right? Like, that's what they're trying to tell us. And this guy, this cold, ghoulish, vampirish motherfucker is feeling, that he has a heart, and he cried and was totally affected by the reports of what happened in October 7th, but like, none of the other suffering equates to that. And that's the problem with the shit with Israel, that their suffering is somehow worse than everybody else's, right? Like somehow they're, you can kill 1 million Palestinians and that's justified, but 1,500 of these people die from whatever, they say this self-imposed false flags type of thing, and that's somehow worse than the rest of them, right? It's really fucked. Anyways, let's get back to it here. Okay, so I had one more thing to add here. They often say the end is near and the beginning is near. Both things are true. I mean, I say the beginning is near, but the beginning is nigh, right? But, everything that ends, there's a beginning at every ending, right? And so, going back to this really, like, ideal summer. I don't want to say perfect, but just a wonderful summer. It's been really a great year. And, I'm aware of like the possibility of. I mean, certainly from the whispers of the brighter world prophecies from my Sajmark meditation teachings, these channeled messages, that things are going to start going south, really south, sometime at the end of this year, beginning of next year. If that happens, we won't have all the great things that we have now that, maybe are not making us better people, but are making our lives easier and things like this. Things that we're used to, things that we enjoy, things that we need, don't think we can live without, these things. I'm aware of this kind of thing that happens. People who have cancer, or people who have terminal illness, or have even Alzheimer's, they might have one coherent day right before they died. Like they might have just one or two good days, where they feel strong, where they're lucid, they can communicate and exchange, whatever it is before they disappear altogether. Maybe it happens a year or two before they die, but whatever. They have these moments where they just have a couple of good days, or a good day here, or a couple of good hours, and they're able to make contact with people, and then, it's like kind of last hurrah. They're not certainly completely better, but they're doing much better than they have been doing. And that condition exists in every, those moments before death where you have a, moment of bliss, a moment of away from the pain, or away from the, wherever it might be going on with your physical system. And, sometimes before, it's like the calm before the storm they talk about, it's really nice, and then the hurricane hits. And so I'm very aware of that, especially this year. We'll see what happens, but, this was, I don't know. For me, it was like this just kind of a glorious summer, and nice coming to an end. And, there's always a little bit of sadness when you have a transition, right? Like I said, the butterflies are disappearing, the animals and stuff, the flowers are dying, and then, there's beauty in the fall and the winter, and there's good things about all that stuff. But, there's always a little bit of sadness when something ends and something else begins. And, we're kind of in that stage in our collective existence that there's, a death of something. And and everywhere you look, the signs are there. All right, so I just wanted to throw that in there, and let's get back to the other stuff here. Okay, so let's play that again. Look at this frowny motherfucker right here, right? Steve Witkoff. So, he didn't say anything about Palestine and the horrors that were committed there. So this isn't a conflict. This is a slaughter. This is an oppression. This is a beatdown, and they've destroyed this country. They just went and bombed the shit out of it, which is the goal. Like they succeeded in their goal, which is they've destroyed Gaza Strip. It needs to be redone, and that's why these guys are staking in here, because of the real estate aspect of it. And so this snake serpent motherfucker here, right?
Acts that were committed on that day made me think about how fortunate we are to have a society with rules and laws and people with morals.
He has no morals. Trump has no morals. They have no moral compass. These rich motherfuckers that displace poor people, I mean, they do horrible shit. They make $2 billion deals with Saudi Arabians, which is, he is the smart version of the evil smart version of Hunter Biden, right? The way Hunter Biden was able to work the system and sell access and influence to Joe Biden as a vice president, as president, pales in comparison to what this guy was able to do. $2 billion deal. $2 billion worth of investment from the Saudi Arabians because of his father-in-law being the president. His own dad being a convicted felon. And they have no morals, right? They're doing bad shit, right? They're in that, level of, they're that upper echelon. These are the elites. And so all these people that voted for Trump, you voted for this as well. You voted for what's happened here in Israel. You voted for this greasy motherfucker and his fucking Stepford wife, weird fucking man-looking Ivanka, this stuff.
And seeing these horrific barbaric acts shocked me to my core in a way that I'll never be the same.
Yeah, he has no core. Like he's no, this is not a moral person. And so nothing about the Palestinian people and the way they suffered. I mean, we're talking about the, killing of as many as 600,000 people and the eventual displacement and the suffering that they've endured now for so many years. It was an open air prison before this. It wasn't great before them. Like, this is 45 years. 1945. So in 1945, when all of a sudden part of Palestine was now going to be called Israel, and these Palestinian people were forced out of their homes. Like they had to leave their homes. It's like somebody saying, whatever state you live in is half Canada and half your state, or half Mexico and half your state, and Canadians or Mexicans move into your houses. Like if you're in the part of the state, and you're in the nice place, you're in the suburbs and the cities where everyone lives, and you have to just wander out to the country with no fucking house. Now you used to have a house and now you don't have one. Like that's how it started off, right? And then it just got worse from there for the Palestinians. And so not for the people in Israel, and not for it, but for the American taxpayers as well, because we have to bankroll this whole fucking thing, right?
Since then, my heart has not been complete. And it's been
Come on, bro. Like, to pretend this motherfucker has a heart, right?
a tremendous burden that I felt.
If you had a heart, you'd feel bad for the Palestinian people. When you have a heart, you feel bad for everybody. If you're a spiritual person, you feel shit in your heart and you can't control it. You feel the pain of other people. Like if you have a heart, that's what you feel. Your heart can be refined. I've been meditating on my heart now for 32 years. And I feel things I don't want to feel. Right? Like, I said, in my voiceover, I'm oblivious to, what I watch on the whatever. But if I had to go there and I had to be a part of this, and I saw what happened to the Palestinian people, I had to go to Gaza and see what was going on there. For whatever really happened to these people in Israel, like I'm sure people actually died because they didn't mind sacrificing their own people for, the greater good, because they've done that shit before. But like I believe that Hamas is an Israeli asset, and so, you would know that, like they know that. Like if I can kind of speculate here, just based on what I'm seeing, when you're involved in it, these guys know that Hamas is like, their asset. So they just go out and they lie and they produce these talking points. That's why I was talking about Charlie Kirk. They produce these talking points. Charlie Kirk would go to these guys and they would tell them what to say, and these ways of, you're trying to be a victim when you've destroyed a whole country and you're now going to turn it into a real estate project, and like you think it's okay to just lie and use victim consciousness and, the Holocaust and the persecution of Jewish people as a excuse to do what you just fucking did here, right? And so it's a fucking, it's, you don't have a heart, bro.
To see these hostages come home.
Again, how many Jewish lives how many Palestinian lives is one Jewish life worth, right? And so, let me do a quick calculation here. So, if it was 200,000 who died, which is conservative, people are saying it's upwards of 600,000, and it's also suffering. And then, all the things that are going to happen to the people of Gaza from now on. They're going to be shipped out. They have no homes. They have no infrastructure. They have no food. All the ways that this is fucked, right? It's for every one Israeli death or Israeli, whatever happened on that 1,300 people, it's 153 Palestinians. So one Israeli life is worth 153 Palestinians. And they make the case that Hamas is somehow worse, and they're so lawless and immoral, and the things that they did. But, those things they did, they knew if that was really them doing it, they knew that everything they did was going to be revisited on the Palestinian people. Like they have to hate their Palestinian brothers and sisters to do all these things that they're claiming they do, because they knew that everything that they were doing was going to be. I mean, we're talking about the destruction, the bombing of 80% of the buildings, right? And then the whole other area. I mean, these people are starving. Their fucking lives are wrecked. They're suffering far worse than the Israelis are. The Israelis want this thing to end because they think they're suffering. They're suffering economically in other ways. But, it's not nearly as bad as the Palestinians. And so, this is to say that that one Israeli life is worth 153 because the Hamas is so much worse. And what's the worst is governments. Governments get away with war crimes, right? Benjamin Netanyahu has been convicted by this, bullshit nutless International Court of War Crimes. As was the Queen of England. Like, they have these things out there. But they don't, they don't have any teeth, but they're they're there. The UN, like, even how many, it was like 65% of Jews in America, and some polls think that he has committed war crimes against the Palestinian people. I mean, these are fucking war crimes. And so, they get away with all this kind of stuff, right? Governments do. And they think that this is, there's some kind of, like a, guerrilla warfare is evil. Like the people that are unsanctioned, these terrorist groups, right? They've done nothing. Like if you looked at all, and oftentimes the terrorist groups are false flag, they're assets of the country they're attacking. Like with ISIS and Al Qaeda and all that shit, right? They're there as they're just an excuse to go to war with countries that don't want to go to war. Right? You've seen this over and over again. But in that even if they were just completely guerrilla warfare people, the guerrilla warfare people have killed, like, for every one person they've killed, there's been thousands killed by the governments. Like, it's always that way, right?
To see their families get the closure they deserve and to end this nightmare.
This guy's got like a girl's voice.
And also,
this guy touched his heart.
To see the suffering end for the people in Gaza, who, for most of them, were experiencing this.
You think the suffering you thought the suffering ends for Gaza, right? You just, like, there's no infrastructure there. There's no roads. When the bombs hit, these bombs melt shit and release shit and powderize stuff, airborne. It's just like a toxic waste dump. I mean, let's say, they wouldn't use depleted uranium because they're going to have to go out there and clean it up. But, the stuff that happens when you bomb a place, like everything in that building gets melted, where the bomb hits, right? There's, like, whatever it is, there's toxic materials in phones and, like all that shit, the plastics, all that stuff. Aside from, like, you just got this huge chunks of debris everywhere, heavy fucking concrete, and, there's no infrastructure. I mean, the plumbing and the fucking wiring and all the stuff that makes you have a reasonable life. I mean, what happened to all the, like all the telephone poles and all the, the things where the conductors and things that are the places where the electricity flows from. All that stuff has to be rebuilt, and they have no money. They have no income. They have nothing over there, right? And you got 2 million people that can't go there, but have to go somewhere else. So we'll talk about that in a moment here.
Through no fault of their own, other than being born into a situation that was horrific.
Oh, it's just bad luck. That's what Trump said. I'll see if I find that video in a minute.
We're not going to celebrate tonight. We're going to celebrate on Monday when the phase 1 gets into conclusion.
Kind of looks like you're celebrating tonight, right?
But what I did come here tonight to say was that I couldn't be more proud to see the way that the state of Israel and its people have carried themselves through this traumatic, unthinkable, horrific experience.
Are you shitting me?
Instead of replicating the barbarism of the enemy, you chose to be exceptional. You chose to stand for the values that you stand for.
Holy shit. Right?
And I couldn't be prouder to be a friend of Israel, somebody who supports Israel, and somebody who fights very strongly to.
So this is the bullshit that they're pushing here, right? So, like I've said, they're saying that Hamas did all these horrible things, and then what Trump said that they did to the hostages. But the bombing of Israel, of Gaza Strip, is far worse than any of that stuff. 2 million people's lives are wrecked. They're just they've been traumatized. All these kids, 200,000 children died. Like they're saying bombing, destroying a country and then turning it into a whole Trump Tower type of situation. And then harvesting the resources. There's oil and natural gas in the ocean outside of the Gaza Strip, where they can, Israel's going to have that money so they can do more evil shit. The more money they get, right? Now they're parasiting off of America, but they can have more tourist money, which is always great money. These plazas, all this stuff, all the ways that this will be. There's a guy who came out. He was a real estate developer, Israeli developer, and he was talking to these people about how we have to make a deal with the Americans. We have no choice, but we've already done the demolition part of the country. This fucking. You can't compare what's been done to the Gaza Strip to what was done to these 1,500, 1,300 people and the hostages. You can't say that the Israeli people are more moral than the Palestinian or the fucking, this is horrific. This is like fucking devil shit. This is demon shit right here. What they've done to them, not just in this war, but what they've done the entire time that they've been, cohabitating together. They've and they say that the Israeli people, though, we're just so great. We're just so human, and we have our morals and our character, and we treat the Palestinian people with kindness, right? How obnoxious it is. And so, these are guerrilla warfare people, the Hamas is. And I'm not saying that I believe that this is organic. I think that there is an Israeli asset. But, you have these people that they don't have an army, so they have to come up with something, right? And they are being tortured and starved. Like Israel regularly turns off the water and power. They've been trying to get rid of these people. It's like they're trying to evict these people. So it's like a landlord who's using whatever powers they can to make people's lives miserable so they get the fuck out of there. They have occupied that place before, and all this stuff that they've done. They've spied on America. There's a movie with Sacha Baron Cohen. And I'm hoping I'm not saying this again because I already did this portion and I forgot to hit the record button. So I don't know what I've said and what I haven't. But in this movie with Sacha Baron Cohen, hopefully I haven't, again. So this is the part that I'm pretty sure this is the part that I didn't record. I'm talking about now. It was on Netflix, and he played a serious character, a serious role. And it was a guy who, looked Arab, who was a spy for Mossad. He got recruited by Mossad to go into Syria. So this is back in like the 80s or 60s, something like that. And he went to Syria, and he was so well liked and respected there. After 20 years of being a spy, they made him the Department of War secretary. The Pete Hegseth, the whatever Department of War we have now, Secretary of War. Secretary used to be Secretary of Defense. They made him Pete Hegseth, right? They made him that position. And he was a Mossad agent. Like they have some of the best spy network, and they're very hostile. And they had guys, they've had spies here in America. They had spies in the administration. They have dual citizens. They have people. The guy who did the Fight Club, you can look all this stuff up. There's a guy who produced the Fight Club who was an Israeli spy. They stole nuclear secrets from us, not just from America, but all over the place. they have an extensive spy network. They certainly have spies over there in the Gaza Strip. They certainly have people who are working in, and I believe Mossad is those people. I mean, not Mossad, Hamas is those people. They have Hamas, Hamas is their asset. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I mean, if you look at logically, everything that Hamas does advances the Israeli cause, right? So, why wouldn't they be? Like, what the fuck, right? Like, it's just so evil. It's so fucking wrong. And so, let me see if I can find the clip where Trump says, "Oh, they're just have bad luck over there," and then he talks about America's taking over Gaza. And Netanyahu's sitting there going, "I like your plan," like he's just going along with it, even though he's telling everybody he owns Trump. All right, I have one more thing I want to show you here. Then I'm going to show you that clip of Trump saying that the people of Gaza, just the Palestinian people, they're just unlucky, right? Crazy how Israelis' biggest support base in America are the gun-toting red state Christians who would, with 100% certainty, take up arms and turn into a bunch of redneck Hamas if a bunch of foreigners showed up and kicked them off their land, right? So that's a very, it's an accurate statement, right? You have these evangelical Christian dumbasses, dumb fucks, who are, I mean, they're working for the Pharisees, who were the people that killed Jesus, right? Was as responsible for Jesus' death, according to their own biblical story and their whole thing they got there. That's who these people are. Netanyahu and these guys are the Pharisees, and they, if Russia or China invaded America, let's say it was Mexico or Canada, and they occupied your house, what would you do, right? What would you do if a foreign government came in and took away your land, kicked you out of your land and your house, and you had, your rifles and you were ex-military and things, all these militias and these people, and yet they're supporting the bullies and the people that the elite and the Pharisees, right?
And it's going to happen, I think, very quickly. I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky.
So that's what Jared Kushner was saying. They're just unlucky. They're just born in an unlucky place. They're just born on their land that Israel thinks is their land, and they're just unlucky for that because they don't have an army, and we're supporting Israel. We're bankrolling Israel, and we're paying for weapons, and Israel is trying to evict them like they're cockroaches, like they're vermin, and so it's really unlucky over there.
Place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza.
Can you believe this motherfucker, right? This is what he said. Like, this was his plan. These people, this is their homeland. Imagine if he said this to you, you fucking Trump voters, they fucking, you imagine him saying to these evangelical Christians, you guys just have bad luck over there in Texas. And so we're gonna move you out of the country of America. We're going to move you to these homes in Mexico or Canada or somewhere else, right? Venezuela. You just had bad luck over here. You guys got to move out. Just bad luck for you. And, 2 million people. I imagine if he, this was what he's saying to you as Americans. This is the bullshit Charlie Shekels Kirk was pushing too, right? This is Donald Shekels Trump.
Ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck. This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12. It could be numerous sites, or it could be one large site.
Let's break up all the families. Let's just make sure we don't when we put them in 12 different sites, if there's a family with 12 kids, we put one kid in each different country. Because they just had bad luck as a family, so let's just break up their families.
But the people will be able to live in comfort and peace. And
Yeah, because that's people love refugees. I mean, people who come from a country that's got the shit kicked out of them, and then now they're refugees. They go from living horrible lives as refugees to living on the top of the pyramid in in their new country.
It'll we'll make sure something really spectacular is done. They're going to have peace. They're not going to be shot at and killed and destroyed like this civilization of wonderful people has had to endure. The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very...
Yeah, because Israel bombed the shit out of it, right? Like, I don't know, it's just a bad luck over there. Like, they were dropping bombs, and somehow the bombs fucking destroyed the fucking... What a piece of shit this motherfucker is. Look at him. Look, fucking big-ass Israeli flag. They should put a fucking Star of David right in his fucking forehead and switch in Hebrew where it says Israeli owned, right? With a barcode, right?
dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too.
Sure you will.
And be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site, and...
He's just hearing this for the first time. Look at how happy he is. Like, he can't believe this motherfucker's going to go there. Like, no other American president would have the fucking gall to say such horrific things. And this guy, like, no one is owned like this motherfucker. Look at how happy he is.
Get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job.
Except, you know, not the Palestinians, because they'll be shipped off to one of the other 12 countries that can't wait to take them in. Like this fucking guy, right? Like he lives in an imaginary world that everyone is there just to solve his problems. Like all these other countries want refugees. We don't want immigrants, but all these other countries do. You know, the evangelical Christians supporting this motherfucker in this fucking place who can't wait to get rid of the immigrants in our country, expect that the Palestinian people should just leave the promised land. You know, fuck all these people, right? The Charlie Kirk people, all the fucking people, all these people. You know, like just, it's right there in your fucking face, pretending that you're a spiritual person or a godly person. And the lies are just in your motherfucking face, this bullshit stuff. Talking points coming from him, this weird shit coming out of this ghoul's mouth, right?
Do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
Yeah, because fucking Israel's never going to relinquish their claim on that land.
I'm hopeful that this ceasefire could be the beginning of a larger and more enduring peace that will end the bloodshed and killing once and for all. With the same goal in mind, my administration has been moving quickly.
Okay, so it goes on from there. And then Trump was asked later on, like, by what authority do you have to claim the Gaza Strip? And he goes, by the American authority, right? Like, he just thinks he can say, we own Gaza Strip now, and we're going to fix it. And, like, that's what he fucking did. And, you know, it's kind of playing out like this, except nobody wants these people. And they got, whatever's left of the 2 million people there. And, they have nothing, and now they have to, they can't rebuild. And no one else is going to pay for it, right? Unless they have, they're going to get a return on their investment, right? People go in and build hotels and shit there because it's a beautiful place, or, there's oil and things there in the Gaza Strip. So, this is the promised land, according to the Bible, the Old Testament. The people believe in this bullshit, right? I talk about this all the time. And so you think they're going to stop with this little part of it when they think they own all of this? So, these other countries know all this, right? There's Zionists and American evangelicals and the neocons and the other people that believe in this, right? Believe in this bullshit Old Testament book that's where the God of the Old Testament is a demon, right? So I asked Gemini, yes, there is no natural gas field in the ocean off the coast of the Gaza Strip known as Gaza Marine Resources. It's primarily a natural gas field with an estimated recoverable resource of 1 trillion to 1.6 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. While small compared to some of the other nearby fields, this amount is substantial and could cover the energy needs of the Palestinian territories for years. There are estimates of potential in the broader Levant Basin, but the Gaza Marine Field is confirmed to hold natural gas. And so, despite its discovery in 2000, the field is not developed or exploited due to a complex mix of political security and legal disputes regarding its ownership and control between the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, which controls Gaza, and, of course, Israel. Israel hasn't let them do that. And there's also oil out there or something like that. So, this is all of the stuff, right? And then there was, of course, this thing here with, like this is part of this whole thing. This is his vision. He can't wait. Still up there, on his official Instagram page. It's horrific shit, right? I mean, this is horrible stuff. Like, you can't believe that this is, like, it's only a demon could come out and say these things without any shame or embarrassment, without any of the fucking, like, oh my God, this is, like, we're horrible people. I mean, this whole thing. And him and his fucking, that fat fuck, those two fat fucks sitting by the pool, Trump and Netanyahu. I mean, this is just a nightmare. And, they're displacing these people. And if this happened to any of us, if this happened to any of us in America or anybody else in the world, what's happening to the Palestinian people since 1945, and this is the way that you look at it. You can't dismiss the suffering of other people and displacement. Like, this shit has been done, colonization and shit like this has been done forever. And it's being done here in American cities with gentrification and things. And Trump has been big at expelling poor people from neighborhoods for, real estate that he wants, or creating slumlords and stuff. But this is the kind of guy Jared Kushner is, kind of family he comes from. And, for them to claim heart and, I'll never be the same, and like they have feelings, right? They don't feel shit, right? They are fucking evil people. This is the kind of people these are. These people have like no sense of humanity. Like, there's just things in life where you should feel something, right? Back when I worked in the treatment centers with sex offenders and these kids who were termed sexually reactive, one of the things that you were hoping that you could teach people, which you really can't because it's a feeling, is empathy. They were trying to teach these kids empathy because they didn't have empathy for their victims, and maybe they had it. It just got buried in their shitty lives and their abusive trauma and their shot, whatever it is, right? Like, the empathy dies, compassion dies, your love dies, right? People have lives where their love in their heart dies and their compassion for other people die because they live such shitty lives, right? These people who grow up in hell, and these, people, and, it's valued. Like, people who grow up in horrific places and become unintentional sociopaths, right? There's some sociopaths that are just born with a lack of emotional response. But then there's other people who are created by their horrific circumstances, right? All these Palestinian people. And, you should feel something. Like, you should feel I can't do this. Like, there should be some humanity in you, some connection to God. Your heart tells you can't do something. Like, this is what the Sajmark meditation cultivates, where when you feel like the hurt that you say, when I say something mean to somebody, or I say something unintentionally hurtful, either way, I can feel the hurt in the person's heart. Like, if I hurt somebody else's heart, I can feel the hurt there in my interactions. It's unpleasant. It's unpleasant to feel it, and it's unpleasant to know that you caused that, right, and all those things. And so it makes you become more sensitive to the way you speak to people and these other things, right? And so these people are, I mean, just to look at this, and Trump knew way back when, 6 months ago, that the place that he had seen pictures of it being completely destroyed, right? And it was only, partially destroyed then, and now it's 80% destroyed, right? So 80% demolition, demolished. They did the demolition, right?
See Israel survive, succeed, and to achieve its fullest potential.
Yeah, its fullest potential is being a parasite off America. I mean, it's a welfare state. It can't survive without American money and American, whatever else these things are.
Thank you. All I know, and I have complete confidence in this, is that what will rise from this trauma will be a level of greatness, a level of achievement, a level of impact on the world, a level of leadership that Israel has never seen. And I encourage you all to go forward, to seize that opportunity. And as we close this chapter...
Okay, so one thing I can say for assuredly, something that I'm 100% certain on from my experience. I talk about things being, well, you really can't know this, you really can't know this, this is speculation, right? You can know it on a personal level, but not on a way that you can prove it to other people because of, all the sea of lies and all these things. But I can say with 100% certainty from my, own experience that there is a accountability system that's 100% foolproof. That is, divine accountability system. And because, most people have been lied to about past lives or don't believe in past lives. I mean, certainly Christians. Jesus believed in past lives, but, that's been erased from the Bible. Most people did because once there's a soul, the soul's existence is eternal. The stupid idea that the soul is created because it has to go into the body, right? It's just totally like just a, R word. It's just really stupid. Like it's just makes no sense at all. If there's a soul, then the soul was created when the universe was created, right? The soul, there's no new soul energy. It's all was created in the beginning. And your soul manifests in different forms. And, it's even in terms of its own etheric nature. And it creates physical vehicles in terms of the body here on third dimensional planet Earth. And the body is just a vehicle for the soul, right? Which is, that's the people originally discovered the soul, the Atman in ancient India. That's what they talked about. And so it's been perverted and twisted by these other religions, but there's, a past lives and future lives. So if you knew that, if you knew you're going to have future lives, and you knew that everything that you're doing, I've talked about how Tuesday Paul screws over Thursday Paul, right? There's things that I do, and I realize I'm screwing over a future version of myself. Kicking the can down the road and having to clean up my mess, in the future, right? So, it's it becomes something where you go, I'm not going to do that anymore. Like I'm going to make it better for my future self, especially when you realize when you get older, and you guys should realize this because I'm dealing with one fucking physical pain after another. Like I'm 62 now, and I'm still in relatively good shape. I walk about 7 miles a day, and I do farm work every day, and I do a little exercise thing on this stair thing I got, aside from all the walking and things that I do. And so I do physical work, and I'm in pretty good physical shape for someone my age. But I have aches and pains all over my body, and they just move around. If it isn't one shoulder, it's the other shoulder. I wake up every day, and I hurt something in my sleep, right? And so when you understand this is, for you young people, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to have health issues. It's going to be harder on you physically as you get older. And so if you are pushing your problems and your pain and your suffering off until later in life, you're screwed, right? You're just hurting yourself, and then, again, hurting future versions of yourself. But I can say from my own experience, my own spiritual experiences, that there is an accountability system. It's not some bullshit thing where where Jesus died for your sins and you can go to heaven. That you everything that you do. In fact, that's an unaccountability system where people think they can sin and get away with it, and then on their deathbed they can claim Jesus as their savior and they get to go to heaven. It's a bullshit thing. Everything that you do is accounted for, and there's a reaction. Like this idea of karma. Karma means action. The way that people think about karma isn't the right way. What's called some scars or impressions. That everything that you do, everything that all the guilt you feel, all the shame you feel, all the bad things that you do, all the good things you do, there's repercussions for those. There's consequences, good and bad, for all of those things, right? And so these motherfuckers in these countries, they're not, at some point it's going to come back. America has inflicted a lot of pain on other countries and done a lot of ungodly things, even as its onset. And the pain and suffering is going to come back on America as a place and the people that perpetrated those crimes. It's there. I can say this with 100% certainty that happens. That's why I don't worry about these people getting punished or receiving consequences, because I know it's going to happen. I have full faith in it, right? Because I've seen it over and over again, and I've had these experiences of all that stuff and things from my past lives that have come up. I've had these experiences. I can say that that you screw yourself over by doing shit like this, even if you don't care about the planet and all its inhabitants and all the plant life and trees and all the shit that people do. The way people like fucking clear cut forests and don't care about anything else but yourself. Care about God, don't care about anybody else, anything else. Even if you just care about yourself, is what I'm saying. You're screwing yourself over. Just in terms of, even if you're 100% selfish, you're screwing a future version of yourself that you're going to have to suffer through your mistakes, right? All these things. And so, look at these guys. I mean, you can see it in their faces. These people are not like is there anything more fucking ghoulish than this guy and his fucking ghoul wife? It looks like she's a Stepford dude. It's like some manufactured some man has been turned into a Stepford wife, right?
Let's learn from the challenges and the pain of the last few years, and let's do our best to make Israel, to make the region, to make the world as peaceful, to build bridges of understanding, to eliminate hatred in ourselves, hatred for others, and to really lead with love and understanding. So I thank you all for the tremendous commitment you've all shown for this.
You guys are going to go, you're going to get rid of 2 million people after you destroy their land, and you're going to build a Trump tower there. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I mean, I agree with what he said. You should get rid of hatred in yourselves. That's a great thing he said. I talk about it all the time. But, that's not what they've done. Like, you can't take billions of dollars of Saudi Arabian money and commit, all kinds of crimes that hurts people. Financial crimes, people suffer from that shit. It's not like they're victimless crimes, right? Financial crimes, they have huge consequences on many people's lives. And, these things lead to wars and these other things, right? I mean, these people are like fucking, you can't be glomming onto resources that are, in terms of your personal wealth, that are, we're talking about billions and trillions of dollars of personal wealth, why people are starving all over the world, and then go, let's get rid of all the hatred in our hearts, right? Like, if you had love in your heart, you would be giving to other people. You're not just giving away just fucking money to random dumb fucks, but doing things in a way that would help other people level up, right? Like, that's the one thing that you can do, is improve the lifestyle of the masses. And these people have no interest in that. They want to kill off, all the useless eaters, as they call them.
Support that you have given to these amazing families through such a horrific time. And just the final thing is, I just want to thank the amazing soldiers of the IDF.
AKA war criminals. BD's war in Gaza. BD's war in Gaza eroded Trump's legacy, right? They didn't know. Probably the people couldn't read English, so so they got one in here. Beatty's war in Gaza eroded Trump's legacy. Yeah, I mean, Trump before that even, but certainly since then, Trump is Netanyahu's bitch. Look out, this sign's going to disappear and they're going to beat the shit out of those guys. Like,
Without their heroism and brilliance and bravery, this deal would not have been possible.
what do you mean? They just destroyed oh, come on, fucking, Jesus Christ.
So really want to give a big tribute to them. So
Give your
God
tribute.
willing, we've accomplished the
Give them
first
some
phase.
shekels. Start throwing shekels. Just take shekels out of your pocket and start throwing them into the audience.
It's been very, very rocky. Steve and I will one day tell the stories. They'll make you laugh. They'll make you cry. It was crazy. I noticed he had no four-letter words in his speech because I think he used them all up in the negotiation.
Look at that fake fucking smile. Look at that fucking ghoul right here. Look at these 3 ghouls. Look at the fucking, I mean, just...
But I think that it's a really great thing, hopefully, to celebrate Mondays. So really an honor to be with all of you tonight, and I'll introduce my wife who wants to say a couple words.
Thank you, Kushner. And thank you, Steve.
She calls him Kushner?
And thank you, President Trump.
My perverted dad. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks to Jeffrey Epstein. And
Tonight, as we stand here together in Tel Aviv, we honor the strength of every family waiting, praying, and believing.
yeah, what do you think they were gonna fucking do? What do you mean strength? You mean they didn't kill themselves? What are you talking about? Like, what was their alternative to waiting?
Over the last 2 years, the president, myself, Steve, Jared, and so many of others have met these incredible,
Thank you.
incredible people, and I am in awe.
Look at the size of that man hand right there. Look at that. Trump wishes she didn't get those man hands from Trump.
By their strength and conviction in spite of such suffering.
Woo! All right, that's enough of that bullshit. You get the idea. I just got one more thing to do with Erika Kirk here, and we can wrap this up. Okay, Mrs. Erika Kirk. So I thought about some of this that she wrote here. So her talking about grief after the way that she, this was, if you haven't watched my other videos about this, turning point, which is cratered. Because the guys, there's 2 guys I've joked they're 2 beta males sharing one testicle. I mean, they have the lowest testosterone. They're the most uninteresting people. And they're running away from the murder or the official story of their boss's so-called murder, whatever really happened there. And nobody believes in the official story, and they keep on pushing the official story. And doing bullshit videos about shit people don't care about. They care about finding Charlie's real killer. Their fans do. And they're not talking about, they're running away from it. So, but before that, she had to come out because there was some money to be made. I mean, she's got $2.5 million in personal donations just to her and her family. I mean, she's the richest single mom out there, and they gave her all that money, right? And so she had to come out, and she sucked at it. She's not a good actress. If you see her, she's normally very flirtatious, very handsy, right? She's very, and also she smiles a lot, right? So her way of interacting with people is to act happy and smiley. I think she's kind of hard and mean. Maybe, there's a bitch side to her that you don't see, but when she interacts in public, that's what she does. But she wasn't good at the grief thing. Whether their marriage was fake or whether she wasn't showing real grief. It was very performative, right? So this idea, there's no linear blueprint for grief. One day you collapsed on the floor crying. Those times that she was doing that, I mean, she was doing this stuff here. Here, let's go to another one of her things here. Like originally, when she did all that shit, it was this thing here. Was it here? It must have been. Is this the one? Yeah, this thing. Where she, this was all performative. When you have a camera crew capturing your grief with your big ass man hands and your weird, your weird that ring that she had there, that ring with a G on it, and then his cold dead hands with no wedding ring on it. Where's his wedding ring? Did you hawk it already? Like, what fucking, this whole thing that she did, right? I love you, Charlie, so much. Like, this is not grieving. This thing here, and then like these mannequin hands, like they don't like. I mean, these dead bodies are just weird. Wheeling out the casket, the flag, her with Usha Vance, right here, and her just doing this, having a camera crew follow them around, right? All this performative bullshit. That's not real grief. Her stopping, I can't go another step. Just comfort me, Usha. And this weird shit she did. And all the whatever they call that celebrity chasing where she did. All that stuff she did, right? So, on the floor, crying out the name of Jesus in between labored breaths. The next you're playing with your kids in the living room, surrounded by family photos, and feeling a rush of something you can only attempt to define as divinely planted in bittersweet joy as a smile breaks through on your face. They say time heals, but love doesn't ask to be healed. Love asks to be remembered. It's humbling to realize that this magnitude of suffering didn't steal my love for my husband. It amplified it. It crystallized it. It's a weird thing to say, crystallize it, right? And I want to talk as love is pain in a voiceover after this that I want to put in the Journey series. But this is the part that kind of bugged me, right? Because it said, you realize that this magnitude of suffering didn't steal my love. Why would it steal your love, right? You think the suffering would steal your love, right? It crystallized. I carry my Charlie in every breath and every ache and every quiet act day to day, leaving I attempt to relearn what the rhythm will be. She's banging other guys. That's and what I realized through these past 30 days is greater the suffering, the purer the love, and I never loved him more than I do now. Like this is just something she had to shit out to keep this thing going. Like, you don't need to say these things. Like, it's performative. All this stuff is so performative. And so there isn't real love there, right? This is so beautiful. Gosh, we miss him. But every day I see the army of Charlie Kirks rising. I'm reminded to keep covering you and the babies in constant prayer and love. This is just, it's all fake, right? And if it wasn't it wasn't fake, she wouldn't need to do this in public because it's a completely private matter. And you shouldn't have to perform for other people. Like, people should give you your space so you can go through what you have to go through. But she's running a company, and so she had to come out and do that gaudy, fake-ass funeral. As far as I know, there still isn't a burial site. Like, there's no grave site for the guy. Like, his body hasn't been put into the ground. And if it has, they're not telling people where, which is weird because everything else is so public. Why wouldn't people be able to visit his gravesite? I mean, it's all of those things, right? So it's just fucking weird. She's fucking weird. But that was her 666 post. That was this one. And now she has this one here. Charlie wrote to me a love note every Saturday while he honored the Sabbath. Jesus fucking Christ. He never missed one. His Sabbath isn't on Saturday for Christians. And it's a weird day to have. But anyway, I share this with you to prove a point. Why do you have Sunday as your Sabbath and Jews have Saturday? Because Christ stopped being a Jewish person when he became spiritual. He left his religion behind, and he started something new. And so the Old Testament shouldn't be a part of the Bible. I've talked about that. I share this one with you to prove a point, not to make anyone feel They need to be the same for their spouse. They, I had a better husband than you did. So I don't want you guys feel like you have a piece of shit husband, because my husband wrote me love letters every Sabbath. But to encourage you, to show that when your husband loves you as Christ loved the church, you have a deeper respect for him, a deeper love. It's hard to explain, but those of you who have an Ephesians 5 marriage understand my sentiment. So I share this hopes today, husbands to encourage to be better husbands, and wives to encourage to be even better wives. They can perform like you do and be fake as fuck. I give you anything to have a Saturday breakfast with my husband, asking how he can better serve one another for the week ahead. So if you're reading this and have that blessing, please take advantage of it for me. So I don't know what it says here. It says, "Oh, Jesus is so inspired and uplifting. I am so thrilled to be on this journey with you. I am humbled by the words I can't read, and the problem, the position for TPUSA." All right. So I'm not going to struggle through this thing. But he says he loves you and gives her a little heart at the end. She has. I mean, if you're going to do written notes, look at why do it on this little fucking ripping the. I mean, you could send this. You could more easily do this on your phone where you have better access to it. But if you're going to do handwritten notes, which are harder to read, he scribbled something out here, right? Kids at home, whatever. And so, anyways, let me go over the voiceover. I'll talk about the pain of love. Okay. I want to talk more about Erika Kirk's 666 post. The part about, the suffering she was talking about. And the idea of the pain of love. But before I do that, so I looked at the statistics, and there is 8,600 people die every day in America, right? And Charlie Kirk is probably, on the day he died, and this is just average, he's probably the worst or one of the worst people. And I'm gauging that. Each person's life, like, we like to judge each other because, that's what we do. But it's really between a person and their soul and God. Their soul and God are kind of almost like the same thing in what I'm talking about here. And, if whatever you do or don't do, in terms of what role you're supposed to fulfill, sometimes you're supposed to be a villain. That's your divine purpose. That's the part that you're supposed to play. And so, we might judge a person for their villainous acts, but they're just doing what their soul and God assigned them to do. So, like, there's things like that, right? But Charlie Kirk was, he sheckled. He took his shekels from Israel, and he sheckled not only for a genocide, but all the negative things between the very dysfunctional relationship between America and Israel. He was pushing that, way worse than anybody else. 2 young people. And he was, it's almost like an act of treason against his country, and an act of, blasphemy against his religious beliefs, and then all these other things. But let's say, like, there's 600 people who are worse than Charlie Kirk that died on that day, right? I can't imagine that's the case. I think he's probably number one. Based in our own evaluation, we'd have to know about all the other people. But there are 8,000 people who are just better than him, right? And, even if they're not better, there's all these people that are suffering grief, and, some of those people who died are children, right? Things like this. That's just in America. And on a yearly basis, it's 259,000 people die. Not merely. In the months since Charlie Kirk is dead, there's been 259,000 people who have died. So just crazy amounts of people. And so many people suffering grief and all these things, right? And so, whether he's a complete piece of shit or whatever, certainly his wife is in much better circumstances than the majority of the single moms and people who, like, lost a spouse, right? I mean, there's tens of thousands of people who've lost a spouse, and they are maybe in dire circumstances because of it. She got $2.5 million from the Turning Point USA dopes that donated money to her, and then all the other money she already had. I mean, she's set for life, her kids, all that stuff. And, she has a support system. And, when you grieve, not everybody around you is going to feel anything. Like some people who knew your husband and knew the person who died don't really grieve for that person. They don't really know them. You don't feel anything, right? Grief is these emotions and feelings, and you go through it. It's a condition you go through, and there's stages to it, right? The 5 stages of grief. There's more than the 5 stages, but it's kind of fairly accurate. And you go through a process dealing with the loss of a person, right? It's especially when that person's significant to you. And then you have other people who don't grieve as much, but they feel for you. They're close to you, family, friends, and they come and support you, right? Through this difficult time. There's an overwhelming feeling, and, it's something that you do personally, and you need to be supported because you have material obligations that you really can't meet during that time. But there's lots of people who have to go to work the next day after somebody dies. I mean, they literally have to, like they don't have an option. And then there's places like Palestine where death is so prevalent, like you become numb to it, like in war-torn places, right? But somehow the world or America, some portion of America has been focused on this one, bad acting. I mean, she came out and did these 3 performative things, and it undermined the grieving process, and it undermined her love for this person, because she could have taken a month and not done any of the shit that she did, and Turning Point would have been suffering, and they wouldn't have made all this coin that they made for these big gala events and things. But she could have gone through a real grieving process. But how many of us actually believe this is a real marriage, right? But in that, there is the pain of love, right? So she was talking about this. She couldn't wait to get off. She didn't put anything up for about 2 weeks, and then she went back to back. And I think Charlie Kirk's birthday's in like a couple of days. I carry on, Charlie, in every breath, in every ache, in every quiet act, day-to-day living, as I attempt to relearn what the rhythm will be. And I realize that through these past 30 days, the greater the suffering, the purer the love. And I have never loved him more than I do now. So she's not really wording it correctly, and I don't think it's sincere. But what she's talking about here would be the pain of love. And so love isn't about pleasure. Like people think love is unconditional positive regard. People telling you great things about yourself is people giving you love. But love is really about, love is most felt in the moments of separation, right? The separation from the lover being separated from the beloved. The poet Rumi from India, wrote about this significantly. It's talked about quite a bit in the Sajmark system in terms of divine love and love for God. And so a real spiritual aspirant, and it doesn't cover this. This is why one of the reasons Christianity isn't, it's missing lots of good things, and it's incomplete, and it doesn't get to the heart of the matter. Even though some Christians have had some experience with this, and I'm sure Jesus had, he just didn't talk about it, or at least it wasn't included in the Bible. But the real spiritual person loves God so much that the pain of separation between you and God, and it's just the distance between, your soul and God within your heart, which is nominal. Like they're really, they're sharing space. And I don't even want to call it space because it's not physical, it's not third dimensional. But the distance between you and God is it's so painful to you because you love God so much that you self-emulate, like this idea of burning yourself at the pyre, which is what some of these wives do and people do in India. And it's kind of misunderstood. I'm not recommending it, but it's got symbolic significance. But it's that the distance between you is so painful, even though it's not even a real distance, that you merge with God. Like you give up your ego and your independence and you merge in the divine. And so this is like the pain and suffering of being separated from God. It's love and craving to be one with God on a level that people don't understand. The pain of love I had heard talk about in the teachings of Sajmark system. And I didn't, because I'm kind of an asshole. I don't like all that kind of talk, right? Like I'm not into it. I mean, I have a loving heart and I have a capacity to love, but I don't really, deal with it in a way like it's there. I can feel it, but it's evident to maybe other people, people I'm, in a loving relationship with, but, it's not something that I talk about or even think about very much. And I kind of felt like I loved God on some level, but, whatever, it wasn't like some big deal. Like it wasn't the kind of stuff I'm interested in. Like I like apocalyptic shit. I like this other kind of stuff. Teachings, prophecies, and things. But I went through this period like it was either a month or 3 months. I can't even remember. Either way, where I had a deep craving in my heart to be one with God, like the pain of love. And it's something that you can experience outside of Sajmarg, but the system of cleaning and transmission, it's enhanced in a way that really can't get anywhere else. And it just came up naturally. Like, again, I wasn't thinking about it, didn't want it. I'd read about it. And I couldn't function because everything in the material world, it seemed like tasteless and without any purpose. Like I just, all the things that you enjoy, all the things I enjoyed, I mean, my kids were young then. I was in a shitty kind of marriage, but, there was possibilities and hope. It was before my marriage broke down and my ex started to flip out, all these things. I mean, she had already had some episodes, but it wasn't, But, none of that mattered. And we were building a farm, we were milking cows, and we were doing interesting things. And I just had that shruti that started what became Pockets of the Future, all these things. There was a lot of, things projects I was working on, and I didn't care about anything. Like everything in material life just seemed like dull and gray and tasteless and colorless. And, and people would say it was depression, but it wasn't. Like I've been depressed before. That was like times where I didn't feel like I had a goal. And, I have the weird, if you heard that sound, it's fucking annoying sound that every time I get a message on Instagram, and it doesn't always come in like this, depends on, see if I'm on Instagram, like I just read that Erika Kirk on Instagram, then I went back to Edition, but on the browser it was still on Instagram. If it's not, and then as soon as I click on Instagram, it'll make that sound because it's annoying. I tried to turn it off, I can't. Anyways, that's just the irritant. But the pain of love, so I went through this thing and I needed to pull out of the condition or else I couldn't live my life. Like I couldn't go through life like that, especially, at the time, I was relatively young. I was in my 30s and had, small kids, young children. And, I had to be, I just couldn't be like just totally focused on the craving and the pain of love in my heart. Like I had to, the condition had to go away, but I can still feel it at times. It's not like overwhelming, but it's quite, nothing compares to it. Like nothing has a hold on you like that, right? And so sometimes in meditation I can feel it, and it's just something I can't indulge in because, like, I have to be, all my videos would suck. I wouldn't be able to joke around. Like I just, just none of the stuff matters. It's like material life doesn't matter. All that matters is to go and be one with God. And so, it's a unique situation, but it's the pain of love. Like when you're separated from someone you love, or when a loved one dies, and you feel that separation, it's the distance between you, and it's just painful, right? I mean, it's just like you can't, there's nothing like it, and it's, there's missing people on a material level, there's missing things about and qualities about the person, but missing them on a, in terms of your heart and loving, is a whole different level of pain and suffering, right? And the way that she went about her whole business with Charlie Kirk makes me think that they didn't love each other at all, that there was no real love there. Because if there was, it's like she betrayed the love by thinking about the business. Like she went out and did all those three performative, whatever she did. And each time she betrayed the love and the sanctity of their marriage by doing that. Like she can come in and talk about having a biblical marriage and these things that she did. But in reality, like she chose her business over her, and even her business over her kids and her family, and certainly her, dead husband. And so the whole thing seems artificial and performative, because when the pain of love is there, that's all you give a shit about. Like when you actually feel the pain of separation between you and your beloved, like if you spend significant time away, and you can feel it when you come back together, like how good it feels. Like, I mean, even as, even the distance between you and because people are distant in relationships, right? You have people who are, they're together in the same room, but they're not connected. There's walls between them, or somebody's on their phone. You're sitting next to somebody, but or if you're both on your phones, right, you're somewhere else. You're not connecting, right? But when there's this pain of separation, you feel it on a level you can't feel other things. Anyways, I just thought I'd throw that out there. And one more thing to say about this. So, you have people that you don't really like, relatives that you haven't talked to in years, people that maybe died when you were in some sort of a beef with, people who, I mean, ex-spouses and things like this, where you once loved the person, then you ended up like hating them, whatever it is, right? Actually, there's two things I want to say about this. But after they die, all that negativity disappears. And, sometimes you have things that unresolved with people and whatever, but, you feel something. Like I felt something when both my parents died. Didn't have a good relationship with them, didn't respect them. My mom a little bit more, I felt something. But there's something there that you can't control, like the feeling of love that's there. There's a love there. There's two events in my life with my parents. One where I had soccer practice when I was in freshman in high school. It was like Saturday morning. And my mom got up and cooked me breakfast before driving me to whatever. And I felt like some sense of like awareness. Most times you're just like a piece of shit kid who just feels like you're entitled to all the shit your parents do for you, right? But I realized, wow, like she loves me. I felt love for her, like, in terms of like she did this. Like, she wasn't a good cook, these things, but she got up and did these things, that I didn't even think about. You just took for granted. And then one time I fell off a zip line. My mom was on vacation, or she went to visit her mom. She take care of her sick. I think her mom was sick or something. She went to Florida. Some way she was by herself in Florida. And my dad was 100% incompetent. And, I don't even know how we survived that time. I don't know what we ate. I don't think my dad could cook. I mean, I have no idea. But I was on a zip line we built. There's some woods behind my house, me and this other kid. And I fell off the zip line and hit my head on a rock. And I woke up in the hospital, right? And, my dad, I could see he was freaked out. Like, other than that, I don't think my dad had any, it was just narcissistic and self-involved. But I could see that he actually loved me. Like something penetrated below all his narcissistic and, he was also fearful, weak kind of person. But something penetrated, and I could see that he loved me. Like, not just that, for a couple of days you could see it. Like he was freaked out. Like and I know that they had a couple of miscarriages and my dad like flipped out. There's times where he felt something beyond his superficial veneer, right? Where people penetrate to a deeper level. And death can do that for you, right? And like, wherever I was just reading something here, I guess Jared Kushner, that, demonic person, said, having hatred in your heart, the hatred in the heart that these people have for each other, Israel and Palestine. And I talk about that in Saj Marg, where you have to expel the hatred in your heart, right? But, in terms of love, you have your love that's in your heart, and then you have your object of love. And some people love drugs, some people love, again, not on the same level as loving another person, but people love their art, they love the job that they do, You know, they love sports. They love, they love competition, all these things. And the more effort you put into something, the more it means to you. And the more, the more you concentrate on it, the more you think about it, the more you love it, right? And that can be with a person or any number of things. So there's the object of your love. And when people make God the object of their love, and they just become, love itself, like it's the love of love itself, which is a hard thing for people to even understand on an abstract level. But, when you love God, you love love, and you become, just your heart just blooms with like love. It's your nature, your internal condition, the energy that you exude is natural and loving, right? The Sajmark system that I use, you get this divine transmission that flows through people. And there's this comment I want to read. I almost forgot about all this. I I'd already finished this voiceover, but because lots of people have been talking about, there's a kind of debate about the long videos versus the short videos. And so is dead, but is the act, I said, Charlie Kirk, the character of Charlie Kirk is dead, but is the actor, Erika knows. To that comment, this person wrote, and this is somebody who's been around for, I think, for a while, who's been commenting on and off for maybe 4 or 5 years, I guess. Hi, Paul and friends. You're absolutely best, Paul. You give us incredible content. I love listening to you. You're so funny and informative, articulate, and easy for me to listen to. I'm not reading this for personal aggrandizement, right? This is just part of it. I enjoy short or long videos. It doesn't matter. I'll listen to them all. I'd rather have more content and have to catch up than none. Majority of my life consists of motherhood and take care of the household and children. I'm always cleaning. Need something good to listen to while I do laundry and dishes, make meals, clean rooms, and even get ready in the morning. LOL. Even my children at the background hear you. Back in 2021, my mom was very ill with cancer. That's where my swearing is a problem, right? I mean, she didn't say so this, but But I guess that would be something where it might be good for kids to hear. But let me just say this: my mom was very ill with cancer, COPD addiction. I'm not sure, is that codeine? I don't know. So many various illnesses and diseases. I gave her an iPad, put on your channel. She couldn't do anything, bedridden, and I was taking care of her. Once she started listening to you, she couldn't stop. Cracked me up. She listened to you all day, every day. Ha ha. She passed in 2024, but I'll always be grateful for you getting her through the problem. She was having, COVID, I think she's saying. Best and favorite YouTube channel forever, ever. Rooster, lots of love, appreciation, and good vibes, Paul. And so the part I want to comment on is her mom listening to this. So the thing about the Sajmark system, that everybody does it, you experience the meditation and this transmission that's given. So in everybody's spiritual system, there's this stuff called prana, which is God's love. You have various energetic and subtle bodies. You have your soul, you have your ankar or ego, you have your manas or mind, you have your chit and consciousness. I think I might be forgetting something. And then there's other subtle bodies that manifest into your physical body, right? Your mind is a field, and lots of people think that mental illness comes from physical or chemical imbalance or some physical thing or traumatic experiences, but oftentimes it has to do with your subtle bodies being messed up. There was a guy who in the mission who was used to do work on some of the subtle bodies, and people had tremendous experiences of benefit from that, because you have these subtle bodies, these energetic bodies that make up the field of your mind and your personality, and when those things get disrupted, it causes mental illness and all these distortion and all these things, distortion in reality, right? I was thinking about this yesterday. You know how sometimes somebody, like, accuses you of something or is mad about something, and they've just made it up. They're either being paranoid or they have a little bit of information, but they don't have all the information, and they get really upset about something. And then when they realize they're completely wrong, they're still like mad at you, right? They don't get, because everyone has that experience where you hear something or you interpret something wrong, and and then you realize, oh man, I was wrong, and instead of being embarrassed, you still are mad. Like you still like even though you now know you have the wrong information, it doesn't affect your mood, and you're still being accusatory, or people are being accusatory, and you're like, what the fuck, right? You just found out you're wrong. Why aren't you apologizing or being embarrassed, right? And that's because people are just so fucked up, and they just can't accept, they can't admit to their own failures, and it's very common that people are like that. Or even if they find out they're wrong, they don't, and this is the worst case, where they'll keep on going with the information even though they know it's not true. They pretend it's true, and they still go after people even after they find out they're completely full of shit. And that's what I'm talking about with Charlie Kirk and these other people. They don't reverse their process. There'll be people who will find out that the guy that they're trying to convict is innocent, like lawyers, district attorneys, police people, people on the police force, and they'll find out the guy's innocent, and they'll still go through with it, even though they know he's innocent. Like, that's how fucked up people are. Like, it's just, they'll do shit like that, right? And like that shows you like how degraded people are as human beings. So getting back to this, I was talking about here. In terms of this comment, there was this guy named Don Savarin. He was a guy who talked to me after I was made a preceptor. And he knew a lot. He was a very dynamic person. He was from Canada. He lived in India for a number of years. He took care of Babaji, the second master of the system. He did like chiropractic and homeopathy, and he was also a nurse. Like he was a registered allopathic nurse. And his wife, I think, also was in healthcare. And Babaji was really sick, and they were there in India. And much to their benefit, especially Don's, they were able to take care of Babaji and, evolve spiritually. And he wrote 2 chapters to a book, and then he died kind of, he never finished it. And the chapters were published in this magazine that no longer exists. Like, these are things that, and I used to have copies of it, but I don't now, which kind of sucked. But he had this chapter about how his mom was dying. And his mom didn't do the meditation. And he went through this whole process, which she was like, for 9 days, she was in really bad shape. She was terminal. And he was meditating, he was cleaning her, and he was cleaning away some scars. And he was talking to Master Charji about it. And, who was helping him with his mom go through this process. And these 9 days where she was like in severe pain and she was having prolonged suffering, she, was able to shed a lot of the spiritual grossness, and she was able to be liberated. And the way that he described it was really, interesting. And I was going to ask, I had some conversations with this guy, but I never got to talk to him about it. But there are things that happen within the death process. And, in the Sajmark system, when you do the meditation, this energy flows through you. We all radiate energy. Like when you're in somebody's presence, and people are starting to talk about this, feeling the energy, and there's energy in a building, energy in a crowd, energy, this kind of thing. But each person radiates energy, and a spiritual person that connects to God, radiates. I mean, we all have these subatomic particles and things, and you have a spiritual condition, and it radiates to other people. And so people who are really evolved, like people like Jesus and Krishna and all the saints and people that people know about or don't know about, it's really great when you're around them. Just like negative people pull you down, these higher developed souls will pull you up, right? In the Sajmark system, because you receive this transmission, this energy is in you, this God's love, and it leaks out to other people. You can enhance it and be part of it, but it becomes part of your voice. It becomes part of your condition. And even though this is a replica of my voice, when I started listening to my videos, I could feel a transmission in it. When I play back the videos, I could feel it radiating out same transmission that's given, or a similar transmission to one given in a Sajmark system. And so that, to me, is the most important thing in these videos. It's not the words that I say. It's not knowledge that I present. It's not the humor. It's not the pictures or the content. It's the energy that affects people, because that's the most important thing. Because I've been privileged to do the Sajmark system, and you turn into a conduit. I've been changed into a conduit, and there's something to do with my voice. There's, spiritual work done on my voice over the years where this energy could radiate out of it. And, this is part of my assignment. And it's the most important part, that people experience this energy. That's why when people speed up the video, they miss out on it. Because you're missing out on people will speed up, because I actually slow down my speech. In real life, I talk very quickly. And sometimes I start thoughts before completing other thoughts. And, I am on my best behavior. I've learned to actually listen to people in the future who aren't going to be listening to this, and slow down and, somehow articulate things and go back over things that I normally would blow through if I was just talking to somebody. But I'm able to sort of sense the questions that people are going to have, or misconceptions, and talk in a very slow, clear way. But people speed it up because they think it's, for whatever reason. But that's not benefiting them energetically. And so the most important thing here that I do is the energy that flows through me to these videos. And so if somebody's in the death process and they don't have access to, real spirituality or religion, this would be a good thing, right? Like this commenter said about her mom, right? That this, her mom was in this death process, and, there's a link to it. Like there's a link to divinity through this energy that is, a part of these videos. So, there would be help for somebody watching this. It's not because of anything that I'm doing. I mean, it's stuff that I'm doing because I do the meditation and I keep this connection going. Even though that this meditation system that I do, the organization itself has collapsed, I still am connected to it. But this energy is the most important thing. The words are great, the jokes are great, whatever. I mean, they might be great, like you can interpret these things one way or another. The insights that I have, it all serves a purpose. But the energy is the most important, because to me that's, the Sajmark system, there's great teachings and there's great interactions, and I've had wonderful experiences and deep belly laughs and great times, where I went to these gatherings and I hung out and I spent time with the master of the system and all those things. But it's the energy, the transmission, the experience of God's love that is the most important thing beyond anything else. And true love is God's love, right? So when people talk about long videos being, complain about the long videos, well, the people who benefit from this most do things like this person says. My wife does the same thing. She will listen to these videos while she's out working on the chickens or doing something in the house, or, whatever. And that's, these long form videos are a great way to have something in the background. And even if the, words aren't always heard, or there's, you don't listen to it as intently, then I don't think that people will benefit specifically by hanging on my every word, right? But if you can do other things and you have this energy in the background, it somehow, it helps for it to be absorbed more. And so, for those people who do feel the energy, that's more than anybody else, this system, these videos are for you, right? Because the energy is, again, divine energy is the most important thing. So anyways, I think that's enough for now. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.